Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger. Up next on the GM, AFC West rises and falls. Do me a quick favor, hit like. If it is your first time checking out the GM, hit subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk about it. So, it's time to continue our tour around the AFC, and it's time to turn our attention to the AFC West. And if you're going to talk about the AFC West division, you must talk about the champs first. Well, the Chiefs have not been super busy this offseason. They've had some departures: MBS, Willie Gay, Donovan Smith, and they've retained a couple of players. They retained L'Jarius Sneed through a franchise tag. Not 100% sure what's going to happen with them, as we've heard rumors that he could be traded if he signs his franchise tag. We also have heard that he could sign a long-term deal, which probably is going to lean in the team-friendly direction. Either way, whether they keep him, they're gonna keep a really good cornerback, and if they trade him, somebody's gonna get a really good cornerback. They also signed Chris Jones to the largest deal in NFL history for an interior defensive lineman, and so you could definitely see that coming. His play has been outstanding. His impact has been unmeasurable, and so you definitely could see the Chiefs being willing to pay Chris Jones what he was asking for. Um, I think the biggest sign in this free agency for the Chiefs has been Marquise Brown, Hollywood, as he's known. He's a guy who started out with the Baltimore Ravens and was traded after, I think, 3 years, something like that, to the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't think at this point in his career that he's absolutely tapped into his full potential, as he was unhappy with the system and the approach in Baltimore, and quarterback injuries and then his own personal injuries as a player kind of derailed some of his success out there in Arizona. I think this is a rebirth kind of year. Get with a winning organization, an organization that definitely will know how to use him and will use him to his most effective measure. I think that you're going to see his speed be on display. You're going to see his route running be on display. And I think you'll see him eclipse 1,000 yards in Kansas City. So shout out to Marquise Brown for being able to get an opportunity to revitalize his career. I think he's going to be super, super effective for the champs. And so when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not a team that's rising or falling. They're a team that's already at the top, and they're just sustaining their perch at the top. And in order for somebody to knock them off, they're going to have to raise their level of play and roster construction to a level that's going to compete with them. Let's move down to the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that I believe is on the rise. Um, I believe they're on the rise because they are kind of retooling their roster, they're retooling their head coach position, and looks like they're going to go in a new direction. When you think about what the Chargers are doing, they moved on from Mike Williams, saved a lot of money in cap space, something like $20 million. They traded away Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears, and that also opened up some cap space. And it kind of helped eliminate those rumors that they may trade or cut Khalil Mack, trade or cut Joey Bosa. With those two moves, it got them under the cap, allowed them to have some cap space, and so they were able to keep their defensive edge rushers intact. And I think that was a big move. They've been rebuilding this offensive line for a couple of years now, and they do have a stud at quarterback who just hasn't been able to stay healthy and or get out of his own way. I think the biggest signing for the Chargers right now is going to be their head coach, Jim Harbaugh. I think that he's going to be able to provide direction. He's going to be able to provide stability and leadership. And I think the Chargers are going to be in a more competitive capacity. I think they're going to be on the right road. They're not going to be in contention for anything this year other than the playoffs, but I do believe they're going to be headed in the right direction. So I believe that the Chargers are a team that is rising. Harbaugh specifically has been a team builder and a franchise revitalizer. When he went to the 49ers, he built that team and filled out that roster and led them to a Super Bowl, which we understand we won in 2012. And then when you think about, he left and went to Michigan and built that program and made them super competitive, and he ended up capturing a national championship. And I think the logical move was to come back to the NFL to finish some unfinished business. Now, whether he captures a championship with the Chargers or not, that remains to be seen. But I certainly think he has a really good roster. I certainly think he is a coach who is a proven builder and winner, and so I think the Chargers are a team who is elevating um, in 2024. When we jump down to the Oakland Raiders, excuse me, not Oakland, Las Vegas. I always want to say Oakland. When we jump down to the Raiders, I think the Raiders are not a riser or a faller. I think they're just going to be a team that's going to sustain competitiveness. The Raiders are probably in what you would call rebuild mode as they went from an interim Antonio Pierce to a head coach full time Antonio Pierce. I think that's going to be a good signing and it's going to pay dividend long term and short term. I think that he's a good leader. He's hard nosed and he has a direction that he wants to take this team. You could see this team play hard for him. You could see the team rally behind him, and you could see this team take on his identity, such as the Detroit Lions did with Dan Campbell. And so I think that what you're going to see from the Raiders this offseason and in the draft and even into 2025, you're going to see them build a bully of a defense. And they've already begun that process with some offseason additions. And you saw them move on from Winfro. You saw them move on from Jimmy G. And you saw them allow Josh Jacobs to walk in free agency. So you're going to see kind of a rebuilding on the offense side of the ball. This draft class is deep at wide receiver. It's deep at offensive line. And so I think that you're going to see some good additions in the draft as they build a team to follow Antonio Pierce. I'm gonna go ahead and predict this. I think that the Raiders move on from Devontae Adams um, between now and the trade deadline. You could see a move for sure before the draft, right? But I think it's more likely to be at the trade deadline. Either way, I think they move on from Devontae Adams. Not because Devontae Adams is a bad player, but he's already 32. And I don't think he can be in the long term plans of a rebuilding franchise, especially if it's rebuilding on the offense. Now, they could certainly allow Devontae Adams to stay in place and help mentor and tutor the new wide receivers that they're going to bring in this year's draft class and then move on. But I certainly think they move on. He is not part of the long term plan. So I think that you're going to see a couple of teams pony up some draft capital to go after Devontae Adams. So I think the Raiders are a team that is sustaining their competitiveness. And then when you jump down and finish up with the Denver Broncos, they're a team who is on the decline. They are certainly falling. I say that the Denver Broncos is falling because anytime you release a player and take a $37 million cap hit, you get no return on that move. You're definitely going in the wrong direction. But I certainly think they're just going to clear the surface right now. They're going to, kind of remove a lot of things that were already pre-existing, and they're going to build a team that's suitable to Sean Payton's offensive mindset and his skills. So I certainly think that the Denver Broncos are a team that's going to be kind of, I hate to say it this way, but one of the bottom feeders for a couple of seasons before you see them become real competitive again. I could also see them moving on from Cortland Sutton. It has been a rumor for a couple of seasons now. You saw them move on from Jerry Jeudy, taking I think something like a fifth or a sixth round pick or something like that for Jerry Jeudy, sending him to the Cleveland Browns. I think you could also see a similar move with Cortland Sutton, as they are probably just going to clear the decks from those expensive players, rebuild through the draft, and just kind of start fresh. So I believe that the Denver Broncos are a team that's on the decline and falling. So when you think about the AFC West as a whole, I think it's the Chiefs and then it's everybody else. I think there's a wide gap between Kansas City and the Chargers, and then I think there's a gap between the Chargers and the Raiders. And so I think that this division is going to be owned by the Chiefs for at least the next 2 seasons specifically. I think after that second season, what you're going to see is some churning in Kansas City of their roster. And you're going to see at that point in time a young, competitive, not San Diego, a young competitive Los Angeles Chargers kind of began to push the Chiefs a little bit and make some noise, be in contention for a Super Bowl or at least an AFC Championship title game um, in the next couple of seasons. So you guys let me know what you want me to know about the AFC West. Who are the risers? Who are the fallers? Who are the biggest signings? All those kind of things. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and I am out.